These aren't really recommendations for buying a sailboat, but this is our story. Hi, I'm Doug, and this is my first mate, Peggy. Together, we're sailing the coast of Maine in our 30-foot hunter called Lavender Love. Hopefully, we all have times where our dreams and reality cross. Our sailing dream started over 40 years ago, not long after we met. We'd sit at marinas dreaming about being out there, on the water, looking back at land, rather than sitting on a dock looking at the beautiful boats. We went to boat shows and would randomly stop and look at boat yards or sailboats that were sitting in yards with a for sale sign. This obsession seemed to increase in frequency as time went on. I'd had a little experience, if you can call it that, with lasers and windsurfers. Peggy had none, but she was eager to experience it. I'm not sure what the trigger was. Maybe the generation ahead of us that was gone with our spontaneous trips to take care of our parents, or seeing how quickly the daily routine can come to a screeching halt with sickness or even worse. But at any rate, the time seemed right. With a blink of an eye, it seems, the search for our sailboat was on. We knew we didn't want something too large, as we needed to learn, but we wanted to be comfortable enough for overnights and weekends, or in the future maybe even more. To get an enclosed head or bathroom, we'd have to start around the 30-foot length. We began our search in the usual places, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. By looking at some of the boat listing websites and these other places, we got an idea for what we might have to spend and the features that would go along with that. All right, so here's the first snag that we ran into that we had never thought about in the past. If you buy a boat, you need a place to put it. Available moorings aren't that easy to find around us, at least. We didn't want to spend the much higher cost of a dockage. Where we live, it's a few $100s a year to be at a mooring, but several thousand to be tied to the dock. Now, the convenience of a dock is nice, but we could live with a mooring. And to add to that challenge, there's a law that states that you can't have a mooring without a boat. So it's almost like a catch-22. So it seems like the boat and mooring purchase need to be magically synchronized. Our search began somewhere in June of 2022. I began scouring Facebook Marketplace as well as Craigslist, and I looked through other boat listing websites, trying to get an idea of the features, availability, and pricing. We did find an older Irwin boat for $12,000 that was local and looked like it might check the boxes that we wanted. So we contacted the owners to take a look. They were kind enough to take us out, and we were initially excited about it, but then after thinking about it overnight, we decided that a 1970s boat was just a little bit older than we wanted to start out with, so we passed on the offer. Soon after, we found a 1990 Hunter located in Portland, Maine, for $22,000. The owner had spelled out all of the upgrades in the listing, and it sounded like it was loaded with electronics, which was a hook for me, so after a few emails back and forth, we decided to take a look. Right about the same time, we saw an ad for a mooring for sale in Belfast. We had decided that Belfast Harbor would make a great home port, since it was closer to our house than any other place, so we went to talk to the guy selling it, and ended up with his trailer and dinghy also, as one package. Okay, back to our trip to Portland. We went to look at Cole Sayre, which was the boat's name. It seemed to be love at first sight. We called the owner to talk about a few things and made an offer contingent on a successful survey. A survey on a boat is equivalent to a home inspection on a house. After the guy did the survey, the biggest problem he found was that it needed a new cutlass bearing, which is a bearing that holds a propeller shaft. We negotiated a final price of just under $20,000, which took into account the repair that was needed, and the deal was done. So, we bought a sailboat. After 40 years of dreaming, we finally closed on a deal this week. And let me tell you, it's been a long process. We did a wire transfer to his bank in Florida, and he sent the title overnight. Not exactly the safest method for doing a transaction, but with the distance involved, him in Florida and us in Maine, it was the only one that seemed reasonable without using a broker. So we took our chances after a lot of Googling and seeing who we were dealing with. Now the second snag was how we were going to get the boat almost 100 miles from Portland to Belfast without being familiar with it and not having experience. There were two options. We could either sail it north or we could have it trucked. Both had their expenses and advantages and disadvantages. We did talk to an experienced sailor who seemed willing to take the boat with us for a real long day from Portland up to Belfast, but he had a limited window. So by the time the repair was done on the bearing, our window of opportunity was gone for that. Needless to say, it was a roller coaster of planning and emotions after weeks of trying to coordinate all of the details for purchase, repair, and transport. Finally, we settled on having Belmont Boatworks in Belmont, Maine, truck it up to their yard, not putting it in the water at all. It was almost September, and we were quickly approaching the time of the year when they started to pull boats out and they would be too busy to truck it. At any rate, the mooring was inspected and waiting for a boat, but the sailboat was to sit on stands for the winter. In hindsight, although we were disappointed that we wouldn't be able to start our sailing adventures in 2022, we had more time to work on little projects on the boat, get familiar with it, and that's exactly what we did. Fast forward to the summer of 2023, which we refer to as the best summer ever. The boat floated, we learned a lot, with much more to go, I'm sure, and we had a blast with our mobile floating camper. Thanks for coming along on our sailboat journey with us. I hope to see you in the next video.